Well, let's get started. Neighbors, we'll bring the meeting to order. This is our September planning session. Opportunity for citizens to be heard. Do we have the booklets? Yeah.
Well, I already told you. You asked me what I wanted to say, and I told you.
Okay, so you're all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Meeting minutes, review the meeting minutes. I had gone through and made notes on them. The one meeting I wasn't at, so Michael would do the primary review on that. So look at those and provide your comments. Allegheny Valley Joint Sewage Authority, anything?
Just that we got an overflow bill for the month of July from the sewage company. It was over $12,000. And they're getting ready to get a bond to start their project and getting a committee together, a council, bond council for investment bankers and stuff like that. So he had said that I'm sure they had a lot of overflows from this last weekend too. So that's it.
Mayor, anything?
Yeah, I have the police report from last July.
Okay.
We had police assisted to Springdale, there were 5, to Harmer, Lower Valley Ambulance Service, there's 8, 3 in the township. Police assisted by Springdale, there's 4, 2 from Harmer, and 3 from the township. Number of accidents investigated, 1. Total loss patrol, 2,768. Total calls for the borough, 147. We had 1 burglary with no arrest, 1 DUI with 1 arrest, 2 offenses for 1 arrest. The minimum fees and permits issued, but total fees collected were $788.14. Year to date would be $7,421.89. So we have that. I had some questions. I just heard some rumors on how true they are. It's just a rumor that we are either signed or agreed to sign a agreement with the township, with Springdale Township for police protection. And I'd like to put an end to this rumor. I mean, I'm going to squash as best as I can.
We'll talk about that in the executive session.
Oh, okay. I thought since it was just a rumor that it shouldn't be needed in an executive session.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Treasurer, anything? And then solicitor, anything now?
Not now, but I will ask council ultimately to go into executive session to discuss a number of items, and when you are ready, I can tell you specifically what those items are.
Okay, we'll do that at the end. Okay. General office, anything? Ian? I don't have anything. Water administration?
The water bills went out August 30th and they're due September 19th. There's discussion about increasing the penalty for late water bills from 5% to 10% effective for the 4th quarter of 2018 water bills.
We should probably talk about that.
Yeah, Ian's, I know he has some info on that.
Yeah, so we have some issues where a large number of residents wait to pay their water bills till after the due date, where it's either the penalty phase, and I'm recommending increasing that penalty to try and reduce that number down a little bit. I've had residents actually tell me to my face that they sometimes do that just to sort of give extra work to the borough office. So I also have concerns that so we sort of budget these types of things into administrative fixed fees, but as we move forward with a cleaner billing system, I would like to make those fees a little bit more towards the residents that are actually causing those issues, not the residents as a whole. So we'll be able to line item, penalty as part of our budget, as opposed to passing that on to the residents as a whole. I know the reason I chose 10% was Harmer Water already does 10%. They have 3 weeks to pay. We're also enacting some initiatives where we're a little bit more transparent from the office perspective, where we will be sending out a calendar of when the bills will go out, when they'll be due, when shut-offs are. So on our end, at the beginning of January, we'll send out a letter. The calendar is already sort of made, and that way we're doing our part, and hopefully residents will start doing that. Because it just started to be a little bit more time-consuming for the office and expensive. Every time we have to send out a 30-day notice letter, there's 50 cents on a stamp. Not only that, tracking them down and making sure we get everyone to pay their bills has kind of become a little bit cumbersome for the office.
So how many people generally?
I think it's generally 75 to 125, depending. And part of it, there's 905 accounts. So it just depends. I mean, there are anomalies like vacations and things that occasionally will push people into the penalty, but I think if we have a schedule that comes out, they'll know, and hopefully then, we'll try to stop that behavior. Any questions?
Does it tend to be the same?
Yeah, there's a lot of similar people. There's occasion that people that come in and are like, oh, I have something, like I said, on
Yeah,
vacation.
it happens.
But we're also trying to be a little bit more black and white on like no extensions starting the gym, things like that, that the more flexible we are, the more work it's on the borough office, which is more time consuming. Even the 10-day letters, the more that there are, the more our public works team has to go door to door handing them out, where we're struggling to be able to put up pavilions and things like that, where I would rather free their time up.
That's ridiculous.
We had one person said that they don't pay their water bill because they protest that the borough workers go around and distribute the.
Yes.
You know, and this is a relatively noted person from a position and length of time in town. And it's really.
So again, those administrative costs are currently being spread out, and if we can maybe parse that out and make it more towards the people that are late versus the whole borough as a community.
Any other discussion? Steve, did you have something?
I was just gonna say that, are these repeats? If they're repeats, that's about, Mike asked that question.
It's basically the same people.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? So the proposal would be to put that on as a motion for Tuesday?
Yes.
When do we modify? An ordinance or a resolution?
I think it's just resolution or just a
Well,
motion.
But I think
the
the,
problem, you mean the 10% penalty?
yeah,
That's probably part of something.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's probably a resolution or ordinance.
It should be a part of the ordinance, but pursuant to the ordinance, there's probably the ability by resolution to modify those.
I was just saying, I don't think we can do it by motion.
Okay.
It'll probably have to be, because even the fees, I think, are by resolution.
I agree.
And if it doesn't get on Tuesday's schedule, we'll just put it on the following month's council meeting.
The
Yeah,
idea
I mean, I'm
behind-
not
yeah, the
disputing,
idea-
I was just saying do it right.
Right. The idea behind doing it by way of resolution is so that you don't have to go back through the whole process of re-advertising ordinances and things of that nature, so that you can make the modification pursuant to a fee schedule.
Any other questions? Next.
2017 Consumer Confidence Report has been submitted to the DEP, posted on the borough's bulletin board in the office, and posted on the borough's webpage. It's being hand-delivered to the residents by the Public Works team this week.
Okay, that went out today.
Yeah, JD said they're about 3/4 of the way done.
Any questions on that? Anything else, Scott? Zoning?
I can handle that. So the zoning hearing board meeting on the proposal around the auto parts development plan has been rescheduled for September 26, 2018 at 7 p.m. There were some issues with one lawyer not wanting something to do with the sunshine law, so we're going to follow those and it's scheduled for the 26th.
So what's the issue pivoting on now? Is it still parking spots? Or?
Yeah, this is an appeal to the Rick Franks, the former zoning officer code inspector, his decision on the number of parking spots that were necessary based off of
His interpretation.
the gross floor plan, yeah. And that's the petition or the appeal that by Bill Sittig, who represents both the Rite Aid and Brian Chesapeake Plaza. And the second point, I just wanted to open up a discussion of the proposal for the general code, from general code for updating the borough's code book. I believe I sent that around via email, and I have a copy of it here as well. So if anyone has any questions over the next few days or
Why
today.
don't you give a quick summary?
Essentially what we're doing is we're bringing our code book up to speed. It was last updated in 2001. And we have a bunch of ordinances that have been passed since then. I've already submitted a majority of those ordinances to general code. They've reviewed it, provided a proposal. And the first step would be approximately $8,000, where they would take all those ordinances and put them into a code book provide us with an electronic version of it. And then there's another part of it as well, which is like the editorial legal analysis, which is another $3,000, where they would compare that laws to other laws in the code book as well as laws in the state, and if there's any sort of contrasting laws, they would give options. And this is actually a good sample, so if any council members want to take a look at this sample, I can show you how that process would work. And I did have a conversation with Michael Peter as well, who's the representative, about cost moving forward. It's about $1,100 some to maintain it per year. And he said on average municipalities also, it costs them about $1,200 every year when they submit new ordinances. So we have a pretty reasonable price to maintain this moving forward, so we don't run into the situation we're at now, where a code book that is stagnant in 1 year for decades.
So our code book was, quote, updated in 2001, but it wasn't recodified. The last recodified was like 86.
Yeah, and they would provide the code for us, which is part of editorial and legal analysis.
Timing wise, we're not gonna do it this year, right? Would that be a next year thing?
It would be done in parts.
I was just thinking financially, are we
This-
okay?
Well, that's a good question.
This proposal is good for 6 months.
Oh, I'm okay, I mean, you know the finances better than I just
And-
wonder $8,000 this year.
Well, so it's staggered, so there's I forget what page it is on, but it provides how the fee structure is laid out depending on what package we choose. For instance, if we chose the whole thing, 20% of the cost would be due within 30 days of the contract signing, but then 20% would be due after the administrative, so it's like staggered.
Just curious.
So if we get our loan,
Uh-huh.
we might be able to do it this year.
Right, I was just curious cash flow wise.
Yeah, and if
you know,
worst comes
everything.
to worst, we could hold it off till December and then hit them, because we have that 6-month window from
Then we
when.
could budget for it next year.
Yes. So we're in a good spot where we can sort of choose the timeline. It takes 12 to 14 months for them to do that, but I did the legwork on tracking down all the ordinances, making sure one we found from ordinance 733 to 791. We have a few that are missing, but I don't think they're passed, so I'm working on tracking that stuff down, but everything's been communicated to general code.
So I'm guessing these days they give you electronic file for the code instead of the books like we could each.
Well,
Part of the proposal is, I think it's $400 for 3 books.
Yeah, try to keep the books down to a minimum.
Which is pretty good.
Do it electronic, because those books were expensive back in the old days.
There are other things associated with it as well. They have a platform where we can upload resolutions, meeting minutes, and other types of documentation for more transparency all at one spot.
And I'm guessing it has some great search capabilities.
Yes. Because I played around with it.
Where you play with keywords and it can find you an ordinance. And I'm just guessing.
I sort of got
Today's world.
this idea from looking at like Franklin Park boroughs. So if anyone wants to play around on one that's operational, that is one of them.
Is that E360?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not like a PDF file, it's almost like a database.
Yes, and then they would also give us PDF files.
For people,
Yes, it has.
so people can't play with it.
Yeah. And if a code was passed, they also would post that PDF version on that site as they're working on getting it into the actual code.
But you would have the actual.
Yes.
You can actually, right?
Yes.
That'll be, that'll be another thing, we'll have to set up some kind of controls on it too, like we can get into that database.
Well, it's not they control it, so I would just submit.
Oh, they do it, you don't make any change?
No, we
Oh.
submit the
I
ordinances
see.
to them, they review them, put them into the, like if there's an amendment, they would go and actually amend the language,
Uh-huh.
and then,
Yeah, that's
and I
exciting.
could turn on a PDF at any point in time, to go.
And anybody can access it from anywhere.
Yes,
It'll make all of us dangerous. You know,
know what our zoning is.
but I also believe there's an app with
Like mine,
it as well.
I don't even know where my book is, it's somewhere in my desk somewhere.
So you have one?
Yeah, I read one, it's red, right?
Andy kept saying that he gave them out and nobody gave them back.
I have one.
You have one too?
I have a red one.
I have one.
Yeah, Vince already had one, right? Yeah, I was gonna say, Vince was
Four of
back,
them here.
Vince was back there when we recodified.
Yeah, so if anyone has any further questions, let me know. We can, again, choose our time for when we want to move on this based on finances and go from there.
And then the third thing there?
Yes, so while they were delivering, while Public Works team was delivering the consumer confidence report, we also had them deliver this Borough Zoning Code Enforcement Update newsletter. Essentially with Sam Stack on board, our new zoning officer, code enforcement officer, and fire inspector, we're going to start focusing on some key issues and then slowly, fix a few issues that we've been noticing in the borough. This is sort of the first notification to residents that we are going to be enforcing these a little bit more thoroughly. And so they were delivered to every house, or are in the process of being delivered to every house. The focus is on visibility on intersections, which we've noticed to be a problem, vegetation and high grass, which I get complaints about, storage of junk on private property, public property, and then also building permits too. So we're going to try to head off some of these problems ahead of time instead of being reactionary.
Any chance you could come to a future meeting? I don't know, just introduce himself. I mean,
We can even schedule it so that you can go on an occupancy inspection.
That's not what I was saying. I was trying to make it easy for myself if he came to a meeting.
Are you gonna be there on the 26th?
Rick Franks will be there because the appeal's based off of his determination, but I can see if Sam's available. But they would be asking about Rick's determination, not because Sam wasn't involved.
Okay. Public safety?
Yes, as you might recall, our refuge contract with Waste Management is coming to an end at the end of this year. So we are looking in the process of putting a bid out for a new contract. And Ian and I met with our representative from Waste Management, Al, last week to kind of get an update on, what things we could possibly bid out on and just a general refresher on a few items. So we talked about just our general refuge like we have now, generally pretty much the same terms of pickup. But we also talked a little bit about some recycling options. And if you might recall, the new people might not remember it, but about a year or so ago, I spoke with Andy. He talked about an e-waste system, which is in effect, they will begin a notification process to all of our residents come maybe December. Sending letters out and letting everyone know about this new program that's coming in place, and then starting January 1 to become effective. And the way that it would work is if a resident had things that they need to throw away through this system, they would call up Waste Management on a phone number that they have provided everyone. They would send them a package in the mail, which I have a copy of somewhere. In the packet will come a large plastic bag that they can put anything in it they want. For big items like TVs, you can just set outside. Essentially, you set outside on your front porch or stoop, what have you. Certain date, they'll come pick it up for you and take it away. You can use the service as often as you want, so there's no limitations on the frequency of it, and it provides potential residents a way to get things out that they otherwise couldn't. Additionally, we also talked about a traditional curbside recycling program. He informed us that the costs for that type of program have been going up over recent years. I guess a lot of the problem stems from the fact that any recyclables that you get end up getting sent over to China, and they have changed how much they're willing to accept in terms of contamination in a shipment, and it's making it more difficult to recycle. So he's suggested to us that the cost for that might be a little bit high, but either way, we're thinking about the idea, let's just bid out all our options, see what things come in at, and make a decision from there. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, we did this in conjunction before with Springdale Township, and we would be presumably doing it again with them. And there's information on your packets, so I think we talk now.
And to add on to one thing about the Springdale Township, Al did mention that if we bid out and they don't want to choose the e-waste, but we do, that's like just an added option, so that could happen where like the general services would be the same, but if we wanted to go in a slightly different direction, we could. So another option for us.
Discussion? Okay, anything else there?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, budget planning committee, review of bill list. Take a look at the bill list. I haven't looked at it yet. What's the Metro Technology Services annual maintenance?
I think that's a police, I'm not sure exactly. I can talk to, Bob about
Yeah,
that.
it's an access, where is it?
10 down, maybe 7 down.
It's the 1,500 one.
Yeah, it's for being able to log on and get the information required for, when you're calling for plates and anything like that.
Okay. So that's a system we keep here?
I guess one thing I might want to talk about, the Tech Direct Service one's consulting for a new server. I didn't have this on the agenda, but I probably should have. We are having our server sort of slowly on its last leg. So I've been working with James, our IT guy. He's given me a few proposals. I just haven't had a chance to really process the proposals yet. But they range anywhere from $8,000 to $40,000. On the low end would probably be where we would fall, but technology is increasing. And he even said that that's pretty variable due to current international issues, tariffs and things like that. So I'll keep working with him, and I'll probably update council the next month's meeting. And I guess another thing, that WC Wild one, we didn't get dinged too badly for the issue with the valve at the interconnect. So once that company was able to come in, 568 is not too bad. I think it was
That's the one that was the overtime.
yeah, where Davey was manually turning it for a week or so. So if only they would have been available earlier, we wouldn't have as many problems. But
Did he give any kind of an indication how long that might last, or?
the valve itself, I think, should be good. But I mean, that whole system probably needs analyzed, and a new path needs to move forward.
If there's any questions there, talk to you. LST?
You want me to? So we got a proposal from Keystone Collections Group to take over our LST tax collection.
You want to explain what that is?
Yeah, first, so they already, before we get into that, they already do our EIT tax collection services. LST is for if you work.
You might want to explain that too.
Yeah. EIT is if you live in the borough, and LST is if you work in the borough. So they're both forms of local, I think I got that right. Local
Earned
taxes.
income tax,
Yeah,
that's the
income
1%.
And local
We
services.
get a half and the school gets a half.
And so this is a smaller tax of all of them. So in the past few years, we've had $24,000 to $17,000 brought in.
Each person that works in our community gets charged $52.
Yes.
That's the old occupational privilege tax.
And then the county changed it and made it this.
Yeah.
So for the small amount of money, it's a lot of upkeep for the borough, and we actually need to upgrade our system in tracking that. And they're proposing for 1.75%, which is anywhere from $400 to $500 plus stamps for them to take that over. It'd be less that goes to the borough again, especially for something that's such a small dollar. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know, and I'll be able to.
It's a natural for them because they're already collecting the EIT. So some companies take the $52 out at once, others take it 1/12 of it a month. So it's nothing for them. They have the records of everybody that's working.
So how was that a motion or is that a resolution?
That's just something for next Tuesday. I just wanted everyone to.
So you're going to put that into a motion?
Yeah.
So we'll be voting on that Tuesday?
But again, if anyone.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. The lighting?
Yes, we also received a contract proposal from First Energy to fix our street lighting from mercury vapor to LED, which would save us, they estimate about 40%.
Wow.
For street lighting.
Mercury vapor is all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the same as West Bend Power?
Yes, they're all. So I wanted to just bring that up and let you know that I'm working on that. I'll
That's great.
talking with Vince about it since he's now on board and have him review the contract.
Yeah, that's just great.
We missed the window for this year, so it's not.
They're doing it all the companies are doing it, I mean, it's
And it's not super urgent because we missed the window for them to do it this year with the weather, but we could then get them pretty early in the queue for next spring.
What's- the deal is, they'll do it and just for nothing,
That's what they say.
and then it'll be figured into our monthly light charge then.
Yeah, it says they can be converted at no charge for municipalities that currently have mercury vapor. So, but again, I'm not someone that's familiar with contracts in general, so I'll work
Yeah,
with
they
bids
would be
on it.
doing it if it wasn't a value to them,
Right.
but also I think they have a mandate.
Yeah, it may be.
Just like you get that thing that says they'll pick up your old refrigerator or whatever. There's all kinds of.
It's a savings, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's, I know
So-
Michael had asked me about the lighting.
So we have a proposal, we have to vote at some point to accept the contract after all the reviews.
Yes, and if it's on Tuesday, great. If it's not, we'll do the following month, but I just wanted to make the council aware that I'm working on these types of
Because that
things.
would be great to know for budget time. Because lighting is pretty significant, it's at 20-some thousand a year.
This would be just street lighting, so, yeah, that's the most expensive one, so that would be a good bang for our month.
So they would convert the fixtures or whatever?
Yeah, I think they might just even just change out the lights.
Okay.
They have to change the whole thing.
They do, okay.
It'll be a whole new fixture.
Item number 4, the loan.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, so we,
Oh, do you want to just make the motion? Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't know if
then
you
we'll
wanted-
discuss
I
it.
didn't know if you wanted to go ahead. All right. I'd like to make a motion to advertise ordinance number 393C obtaining $125,000 loan from S&T Bank.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
We have a motion and a second to advertise ordinance 393C obtaining a $125,000 loan from S&T Bank. Discussion? This is a result of there being $140,000 worth of bills left in our safe at the end of the year when Andy left. So that, along with other notable increase in costs, we've had to basically go through the unfunded debt process, and we've been working with the Department of Community and Economic Development. The idea on this is to smooth out the impact of a major expense and spread it out over several years so that it's a lot more friendly to the residents as far as impact on taxes. You just spread it out over a lot of years. It's similar to the pension situation where we found ourselves in debt there. So hopefully, we still continue to find issues in the office, but this was a surprise early on, and this is what put us into somewhat of a concern as far as our finances.
I'd like to thank you guys and compliment you on your tenacity going after this, because I know how difficult it was. There's a lot of hurdles to go over, ran into a lot of dead ends, and if we didn't get this loan, we were going to have a cash flow problem at the end of this year. So thanks a lot.
Okay, so we have the motion on the table and discussed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anything on pensions and insurance?
No.
Parks Recreation?
No report.
Public Works?
Well, last month we had the telemeter issue, and David did a fantastic job of making sure that was all done. And we are still cutting grass when we can and basic day-to-day operations of Public Works. Now, this month we have, Davey has been definitely proactive, especially with this last issue we had with flooding. And I think, Ian, you're going to talk about the sewage backup
yeah, so
under new business.
yeah, I probably should have put it on our public works. We've had a few sewer line backups in residents' houses. Obviously, this storm that everyone has seen has been a little bit of an anomaly. And so, I mean, anytime you get that much rain over a short period of time like that, you have some issues. So we're working on possible solutions on our end and making recommendations to residents for valves and things like
Was
that.
this the old, is it the one on Hill though, that was okay? I mean, we know every time something's hard and the firemen would go over and
There are some typical low spots as
Or
we're
did
getting.
the same people get flooded down on,
Well, the pillow is Borland's.
It was the one next to Borland is what
boy.
Davey said was a major issue, and then there's been a couple, one on Coolidge and one on Metacourt, I believe, had some issues. So it just depends on certain locations. We'll,
There weren't as many as
Not
there have been.
in July.
Yeah.
as we go through the budgeting
I just wish
process,
those people would get, swing check valves put in there. I mean, you know, for what it costs, we can do everything in the world, but because of the problem up above, there's no way we can assure anything. I mean, right, we really need to take some responsibility there.
And half expected there to be people complaining.
and we'll continue to look into having Robinson Pipe or whoever like them clean out some of the pipes and we'll move back to twice a year and things like, make sure that's regularly budgeted for and move forward with that to do our part.
So from a big picture standpoint, we have, let's say, intermunicipal lines which basically run down along the railroad tracks down to the sewage authority. Those are the ones that are part of the wet weather plan and the plan over the next several years for replacement. So they're not large enough, they're overflowing, they easily could create a backup. Then you have the main lines within the borough, which are our responsibility. Generally, depending on where you're at in the borough, they're at least 12 feet deep for the most part. They could be deeper. I don't think they're much shallower than that, but they could be deeper than that. When you get to the edge of the floodplain, which is where the fire department is and where the lower part of hill is, where it starts flattening out, that's the floodplain. The water table there is relatively high. So now you have a basement, you have a sewer line coming out of the basement, and you have a water table. And then you have water coming off the hill. And it's a perfect scenario for just overloading the system. The question is whether the new lines here, once they get into be free flow, will alleviate that flow. And hopefully that is the case. But if you have a basement that is only a couple inches above the sewer line, and there's any pressure in that sewer line whatsoever, it's going to back up. So as the mayor said, you should have you should have a backflow valve to keep that from happening, especially if you're up against the hillside. So there's a lot of physics and engineering and issues taking place there that are just somewhat beyond our control, is what Frank
But
is saying.
theoretically, there's still a problem that, I mean, that's rainwater. It shouldn't be going
That's-
into the sewage. I mean, I could see the
That's
storm
the
sewage.
infiltration, right?
Storm sewers could be backing up. But these are sewer lines that are backing up, so something is still amiss. And when it rains hard, the sewer lines are backing up. And I just wonder what's going on up above.
That's what, yeah.
Well, that's part of, I think, what one of the options or requirements are going to be with this wet weather plan DEP issue. Is
I
that
think
each
we
of the
did a
municipal-
good job of
in past years.
yeah, of just getting all the downspouts disconnected from those.
But those terracotta type, they're not water.
Oh, they're not.
No,
oh,
they're not meant to be that way.
All right.
So you're going to have infiltration no matter what. And that's part of why the water table building up affects all that. So, okay, any COG?
No, there's no meeting in August. They take a break in August.
Okay, any old business? Any other new business? We're going to go into executive session for what reasons now?
Number of them. First, you have a consideration of a union petition for representation of the police filed by the Union Steel Paper, Forestry, Rubber Manufacturing, Energy, Allied Industrial Service Workers International. You also have a proposal associated with a joint municipal agreement for law enforcement services proposed by Springfield Township. You have
Excuse us.
Sorry.
You have a litigation matter associated with Chief Scott that I need to discuss with you. I would also like to discuss with you the O'Reilly litigation. And that would be it.
Okay, so a motion to go into executive session for those reasons, basically legal and negotiation and probably maybe personnel.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
I second it.
Okay, a motion and a second.